Welcome to the Journey Podcast, where we talk freight, sales, tech, the market, and everything in between. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. Let's get it. Hello and welcome to the Journey Podcast. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. And today I'm joined by Travis Dodge, founder of Wheelhouse Logistics. Travis, great to see you, my friend.
Always good to see you, Will. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. So, man, it's been really cool getting to know you the last 18 months to 2 years, and you've got an amazing story. I want to talk all the background stuff. So sales, you being an agent, building your own brokerage now, all that. But before we dive in and hear your background, give me a fun fact, and then I want you to introduce yourself.
I knew this question was coming, and I'm a massive, I don't have anything that's too fun. I'm a massive college basketball fan. I never played high school basketball. I didn't play college basketball, obviously, but I grew up a huge North Carolina fan specifically. So come November, December, January, that's where I'm geeking out at. And, we try to make it to a couple games in North Carolina a year, even though I live out here in California. So,
yeah. So, obviously the Blue Bloods, they're, a legendary team.
Yeah.
Legendary.
Yeah.
So
my son, who he thinks he's a jokester, he came into our living room yesterday wearing a Duke shirt, and he knew that was going to get a rise out of me. And I was like, no, you can't do that.
What do you think this is? That's crazy. Have you ever seen the social media pranks where the teams will have the guys take pictures or something, and then they'll say, hey, can I get like a Go Gators from like a Seminoles or like a Florida State guy? They'd be like, yeah, go Blue Devils. And you'd be like, dude, get out of my face. Like, I'm never going to say that.
Out of my face.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that about you, so I like that, man.
Yeah. So my parents grew up in Western North Carolina. Their whole family still live out there. We were the only ones that made it out to California. My dad was in the Air Force, and so I would go back there once a year, once every couple of years growing up for Christmases, Thanksgivings, and whatnot. And so. And that's why we have the office in Western North Carolina. James, he married my cousin. He wanted to get into freight, and then, brought on Michael and whatnot. So, yeah.
Okay. See, look at I know a lot about your team, but every time we chat, you learn more stuff. So I actually didn't know that. And now this all tracks. Yeah, man. Yeah. Hell yeah. So Travis, give us a quick 10,000 foot overview. I know that when you got into freight early, it was as an agent, and now you've been able to build a successful firm of your own as Wheelhouse. But I'd love to hear like origin story stuff, and then I'll probably ask you a few questions as we keep rolling through there.
Yeah. So I'm just a late bloomer to life. It took me a while to kind of find my footing in the professional world. I recycled a bunch of jobs fresh out of college. I went to University of California at Davis in the Sacramento area. Took me a while to grow up and found some jobs and went through quite a bit. But, I always loved sales. From the time I was a kid, I was the kid that would go and knock on doors and asking for signatures to raise money for school or for Little League. I was always really comfortable doing that. And I love the idea in sales, the harder you work, the more money you can make, right? Like I'm not going to go be a doctor. I'm not going to go be a lawyer. I'm just, I average smarts, but I always felt like if I can dictate how much money I make by how hard I work, like that's an industry I want to be in. So I went through quite a few sales jobs, and in my early 30s, I met somebody that was a freight broker. And I had no idea what a freight broker was. I'd never even heard of it. And she was a former mentor of mine. And she had come from Unishippers, where she was selling a lot of LTL, right? So get customers onto their website, get them quoting with the national LTL carriers, et cetera. And, probably about 18 months after I met her, I decided to jump in. She was willing to take me on as a sub agent and teach me the business. Just before that, I was working with our friend Dan selling electronic medical record software, and he was my boss. And so I'd go from clinic to clinic trying to sell doctors to transfer from patient paper charts to electronic charts. And so I didn't feel like I was really living up to my potential at that point. Also wanted to bet on myself and get a job where I was at 1099. I felt like if I was a salaried employee and I took from the house, I was always going to sacrifice a little bit of commission. So I wanted to find something freight that was reoccurring, right? Like you book a truck one day, they're always going to need trucking, but also something where I would have a lot of upside in the form of commissions, right? So as a freight agent, although you're 100% commission, the more you eat or the more you kill, the more you eat.
I'll have a lot of respect for people that have been 1099 in different scenarios and then are entrepreneurs or run their own business, because it is really feast or famine, depending on how you perform. Yeah. But I think there's a particular type of mindset that you have to have when you know I must perform in order for myself to be taken care of. Like this whole thing doesn't work if you're not building value and taking care of your customers and finding ways to be useful for them. And it just creates a different environment, in my opinion, in a positive way around really honing your skill. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I mean, you've become, I have a lot of respect for you as a salesperson.
I couldn't agree more. Nobody's more motivated to make a sell than a 100% commission person. And you figure out real quick if it's for you or it's not for you, right? Like oftentimes, more often than not, if you jump into that position and you're not ready for it, or it's just not you go the W-2 route and find something else more safe. It could not have been, it's no coincidence that it's the most successful job I've ever had, or the most fruitful profession, just because I was highly motivated. I was single at the time, had 2 kids, living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Oakland. I was incredibly motivated to go find shippers, and I had nobody counting my calls. And, I don't think I was ever a really good employee where I have a sales manager or somebody kind of breathing down my neck saying, "Hey, Travis, how many calls did you make today? How'd they go?" It's, I was really on an island. Nobody was counting my calls. Nobody cared what I did. If I produced, great. If I didn't, they didn't care. But, if I didn't produce, I wasn't eating. And so it was really good for me at that time in my life. And it was the best decision I've ever made professionally.
Man, there's so many lessons to be learned from that, because you have to have a level of accountability, and you're the only person that you're accountable for. Not that, you don't have to take care of your family and stuff like that. But I mean, there's not a sales manager, knocking at your door saying, "Hey, Travis, like, what's going on with your activity?" And so you have to be a very specific type of seller to be good in those scenarios. It's extremely different. And this, my first job ever, I sold Cutco kitchen cutlery. Yeah. And I mean, hey, dude, I'm driving this car, and if I don't make a sale, like, there's no one coming to save me. It was intense.
Totally. Your name came up on the Freight Pod. I was listening to you over the weekend, and they referenced your job for Cutco. And I mean, that had to be such a good training ground for you.
My first weekend, my gosh, it's crazy. This is a crazy story. So my first weekend ever, I have to call all of the people that I went to high school with. I'm like cold calling my high school, not yearbook, but directory. And, I'm trying to set appointments with as many people as I can. And imagine you go to a small school, your graduating class had 110 people in it. So everyone. I've known you since you were a freshman.
Yeah, I can relate.
Your parents know me. Like, it's not like a gigantic school. And first weekend, I'm ripping out calls, "Hey, this is Will, trying to win a scholarship." You go through the whole script, and you're just getting hung up on. And the people on the other end. So it makes it, I'm 18, fresh as a daisy, like 3 days after graduation. I'm like, man, the world is brutal. But to your point, man, like it gives you this calloused skin that you just kind of get used to, like, man, this is like what it is. And if I don't show up and perform, I'm not going to get paid. And I think for what we do today in our business right now, like, it's very similar. I'm on the phone having conversations with people. I'm for some people, the scenario or the offering is for some people. And unfortunately, sometimes it's not. You cannot take it personally, because it will ruin the next couple of days if you do.
100%. It will ruin you if you take it personally. You can't. You got to move on to the next person. And it's still, easier said than done. There's still times I'm like, oof, that one hurt,
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
It's interesting. You bring up, it's funny you talk about calling people from your high school. So Dan and I were talking, Dan, our sales manager, and we grew up together in a small town. Our class was, 160. He was a couple years older, but had about the same size class. It is easier for me to call somebody I don't know. It's easier for me to walk into a business and talk to somebody and solicit their freight business than it is for me to call somebody I grew up with and ask them for their freight. There's a couple people, for example, that work for large shippers. One's a sales manager for a big meat company out of California. And it's hard for me to ask her to put me in touch with the freight, the logistics manager. My sister-in-law, my brother's wife, works for a major shipper out of the Sacramento area. And it's uncomfortable for me to ask her, but yet I talk to anybody else, that totally. I don't know. I don't know why that is. I just thought I would throw that out there.
I mean, I think there's like this level of expectation, and you probably don't want to let them down. And there will be a scenario, it's inevitable because it's freight, where a truck's not going to show up or something's not going to go the way it's supposed to go. And like, man, I don't want to cross that bridge. Sometimes it gets a little dicey. So I can definitely understand.
Totally. But, going back to just cold calling and stuff, and this is why I love you, among many other things, like, you get it. This business is all about sales. And really, for me, there's only one way to drive business and drive sales in freight, because it's so competitive. There's so many freight brokers out there. It's just making your calls. That's it. Like, it comes down to it. Did you make your calls? If you make your calls, whether you're a freight agent or you work for C.H. Robinson or TQL, like, if you make your calls and you're present and you're consistent, you're going to do really well. And if you don't, you just won't.
It's not going to work.
It's that simple.
It is, man. I mean, that's the beauty of sales in general, though. I mean, I think once you start to understand your offering and your services, you can be more nuanced in your approach, and you can say things that, Travis on the other end that's been doing it for 20 years, he goes, okay, that person knows what they're talking about, right? It's very different between being a green novice person and, a 25, 30-year vet. But at the end of the day, to your point, it starts with the outreach, right? I have to make my calls. I have to go knock on the doors. I have to send my emails. If I don't do that, I'm never going to be able to build my book. And it's funny, out the right side of my monitor right here is our team metrics on new logos and new meetings set, which we talk about it every Monday at 3 p.m. And we're going through, okay, who do we speak to? That was new. What is newly contracted? What is close to closing every 7 days? Because it's the lifeblood of our business. And man, when we stop doing that, this whole thing, we go off the tracks. It won't work anymore.
It's the lifeblood. I don't know. Do you read any Jeb Blunt?
I used to read a ton of Jeb Blunt. Yeah. Absolutely.
The way he breaks it down, just so simple. There's a lot of salespeople out there that like try to get in the nuances of sales and, sales process. I'm like, he's like, it's so simple. Make your calls, prospect, right? Like calls, letters, knocking on doors, do whatever. You're constantly prospecting. And if you prospect enough and consistently, you're going to do well. So it's a huge part of how we grew our business. And it's sales cures all. If we're not out there selling, we're not going to do well. And if we do what we should do, then we're going to do well.
So I want to go into the origin story of Wheelhouse and talk a little bit about the agency that you built, and then your transition from that into running Wheelhouse. Yeah. And then I want to keep going through sales, because I think you and I could jam on sales all day. So we'll have fun doing that.
Totally. So as I mentioned, it was 2014. I decided to go bull feet in, become a freight agent, 100% commission freight broker. And so I had no freight experience. I had no customers, obviously. And so I just went out there and I started driving industrial parks in the Bay Area and looking for business. The gal that I worked with, the freight brokerage that I worked with, was very LTL driven. A lot of the owners came from that world. A lot of the agents came from that world. She came from that world. So I started to try to sell LTL and was lucky enough to get a couple truckloads in there. And, you look at your commission reports between, after booking a truckload and booking 10 LTL shipments is like, okay, I mean, the money's in truckload. It just is. It's easier, right? No reclass reways, no missed pickups and not as many missed pickups and deliveries. And so started to really go after that type of business. And, it took me 6 months to get my feet like under me and get some momentum, and got one truckload shipper that's still with us today, and it started to take off. I mean, I was really hands-on. I was doing a lot of cradle to grave. Like, I would post my own loads or develop relationships with truckload carriers and, negotiate them down. But I was tapping into a lot of the same carriers. After about a year, I found another customer that was more partial truckload. So half a truck, quarter truck, 3/4 of a truck, where we're not using the national LTL carriers, but we're not charging you for a dedicated truck either. So started to really ramp up, started to really get comfortable booking freight, developed a lot of good relationships with carriers. And so, I did that for 10 years. I mean, there was many Saturdays where I was working for a large shipper that, had to book freight on Saturdays. And so over time, not only did I recruit some other sub-agents that had, that not worked under me. I mean, they were building their own business, but I was recruiting and training them. But also I had employees, I brought Dimitri, I brought Arthur. And so I had some W-2 people working under me. I had sub-agents that were, building their own book of business that we were getting a cut of. And then we had our own, house shippers that we were trying to take care of. And meanwhile, the whole time I'm out there trying to sell, more and more to more and more shippers.
Yeah.
I'm in Oakland, California. So naturally, most of our customers are out of the Bay Area or Sacramento area. It's what I'm comfortable with. And so yeah, about 10 years in, I had a conversation with my old brokerage and told them, my goals to kind of take the next step, challenge myself and start my own brokerage.
I love that, man.
Here we are.
So you guys launched Wheelhouse in 2024?
Yeah. So our first shipment was under Wheelhouse was September 30th of 2024.
Let's go. We're coming up on 2 years.
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So the first 4 months, we were booking a lot of our freight under Wheelhouse, and we were keeping some other customers under our previous brokerage out of respect and whatnot. But after a while, it wasn't working out and we decided 100%, with Wheelhouse. And so here we are, we're trying to, grow.
Totally, man. So I want to talk about two concepts that you hit on. One is specialization. Yeah. And the second is going to be as a founder and executive led sales, because almost every time I talk to you, you are in your car and you're taking the call, video in your car, which I respect because you're hustling either in front of current clients or finding new opportunities. So we'll go specialization first. When did you realize, okay, I know LTL, I can move truckload freight, but there's something in there's something in some of this refrigerated LTL business that I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to run with that, because I think you've created a really distinct moat for the types of customers you transact with.
Yeah. So those two modes, temp controlled LTL and partial truckload, just kind of fell in my lap. Temp controlled LTL, nobody does it. And I found out pretty quickly. that it was hard to find carriers, but I was like, I didn't have a lot of business. This was really early on. And so I was like, I'm going to figure it out, and found a couple carriers here and there, and just, got one customer that was sending me a lot of Southern California temp controlled LTL. And so I had a couple of carriers that did it. They kept sending me more and more of that, more lanes, more parts of the country, and just kind of figured it out. And not a lot of people were doing it. And so when I start to become very confident in it. And so I would take that mode and I would sell it to, I go find other shippers that are doing it. Hey, we do a lot of temp controlled LTL for this company, do a lot of temp controlled LTL for that company, and really started to sell the mode versus sell Wheelhouse or my previous brokerage, right? And so because most people didn't know how to do it, most people don't do it and just kind of turn it down.
Do you know how much reefer LTL I've turned down? I couldn't even conceptualize the things that you do. Absolutely pretzel my brain. I don't even know where to start.
And so exactly. Most brokers turn it down. And so it's become a really good opportunity for us. And then, going to dry partial truckloads. I didn't even know what a partial truckload is. First time customer asked me for 8 pallet partial truckload quote, I quoted FedEx Economy. They're like, no, like a partial,
That's incredible.
figured out, posted a bunch of stuff out of the area and got a bunch of carriers, started to accumulate, carriers that would call me and strike conversations with them. Hey, where do you like to go? What do you like to do? Et cetera. Talk to me about your sailing schedule. And so really learn the dry partial truckload space. And what I love about partial truckloads is it doesn't matter what the commodity is, right? Some brokerages will sell, hey, we do a lot of wine, we do a lot of packaged food, we do a lot of construction equipment. Like, if it fits in a 53-foot truck and it's 8 skids, it's 12 skids, like who cares what it is, right?
Right.
And that was also something a lot of brokerages didn't sell. They either sell LTL 1, 2, 3 pallets, or they sell truckloads. Like that's it. And so it started to become kind of not just a specialty, but like a differentiating factor for us. Like we were one of the few brokerages that actually did it and wanted to go after that stuff and could talk about it. And so it's been, when you're competing with CH, when you're competing with TQL, when you're competing with all these big boys, like the last thing you want to do is get in a bidding war. The last thing you want to do is get in a bidding war on truckloads with CH or TQL. They're going to crush you all day long. And when you've got the relationship with the carriers, you use them so often, they're more willing to negotiate with you, so we can negotiate our costs down. They'll tip you on if your competitor's posting the same load or calling them on the same load, they're going to tip you off like, hey, heads up, so-and-so is posting your loads, so it created a lot of advantages for us. But yeah, I'm a big believer, like find your niche, go after it, figure it out. It might not work out. You went down that path and realized it wasn't for me. But if you go down that path and it's something that you can be successful with, it absolutely creates an advantage versus the other big brokerages.
How do you think being niche and you understanding those two modes really well changes how you have conversations with decision makers and buyers?
It's a huge advantage. So, a lot of young salespeople, when they get in this business, they don't really know what they're talking about. Like they just don't. And so as I started doing more and more cradle to grave and operations 7, 8 years, 9 years down the road, like I wanted to get into the minutia of booking freight. I wanted to talk about partial truckloads. We just did this the other day with a major shipper out of the area, and she's like, I just don't really understand it. What do you guys talk to me about partial truckloads? And she asked it in a kind of a funky way, an indirect way. So I didn't really understand her at first, but I finally got it. And we, spent the next hour talking about the nuances of booking partial truckloads, what the carriers are doing with it, if it's not load to ride, kind of sailing schedules, everything. And that, got us the business, right? Like, so I want to get into the nuances of booking freight with the shippers. In fact, when we approach new prospects, we're telling them exactly what modes we specialize in. Hey, our specialty, we do a ton of partial truckloads out of the area. We do a ton of temp controlled LTL out of the area. Is that something you do? More often than not, it's actually we do, And if they say they don't, well, what do you guys do? I mean, you could still pivot and get into the other stuff. So it separates me from other salespeople when we talk about the details and the nuances and the minutia of operations, right? You spent years at Coyote doing carrier sales. Like you can talk about booking freight, right?
All day.
You're not an empty suit. Like, the business.
The thing that's interesting to me, and this is just a through line in sales in general, I'm never going to poo-poo a new person that's like learning and doing their best to figure things out, because we were all there at some point, right? Yeah. However, I'm going to press the advantage that I have based on industry expertise or, proven and kind of lived experiences. And that has, rang true in our business here at Journey so much. I think about you and I's first probably 2 or 3 conversations before we started doing some work together on the consulting side. I know for a fact that, like, having spent 12 years in brokerage, allowed the conversation to progress to a manner where like we're talking about the nitty gritty about where this business wants to go. It's not conceptual, how do we move more loads? It's like at the load level, what are we doing with our operators and our carrier network to maximize where we want this thing to go? That's the same thing you're doing when you're sitting down with the shipper that moves refrigerated LTL, because they're going to get messaging and calls from people that air quotes say they know what they're doing. And then you get to the and you're like, dude, no chance do you actually know. So like, my takeaway from that is you got to press your advantage, right? Like you want to be tactful and you don't want to come off too boastful, but when you know what you're doing, the decision maker on the other side is going to open up way more than they would if it's just a little bit of window dressing.
100%. And again, we've all been there. And there, the first 3 to 6 months, I didn't know what I was doing. I was out there. And you got to do it to get the business, but it's obvious when you've talked to somebody that's been doing this for a long time. And I'll tell you what, like I deal with a lot of freight brokers out there that aren't really cradle to grave. Maybe they're just selling and then passing on the operations. Like even I'd love to compete with those guys because they don't know operations, right? Like, I have a little street cred with my operations team because that's what I was doing for years. I had my screens up, I'm quoting, booking, talking to my carriers. I've dealt with everything when it comes to booking freight, everything. That's why it's like, these memes on Freight Caviar, they're so true, so real, but I've always said this too, Will, like you meet a freight broker, if you're at a party, there's 50 people at this party and you hear somebody's a freight broker, like immediately, what? Oh, you're like, we speak our own language. It's a crazy industry.
Immediately.
Completely different than any industry out there, like 100%. There's sales and then there's freight brokerage and we're in our own little, world.
It's a whole different world. And you hit on something there that I really respect. And it comes down to understanding from A to Z how to do the job that you're asking your team to do. And the amount of respect that garners. Again, we've had the pleasure to work together for quite some time now. And I love the intensity that your team brings. I love the way they service customers. Like they're on top of it, but they're like that because you're like that, right? They see that you'd be willing to roll your sleeves up. So you're setting the pace. And I say all this to say, if you're listening to this and you want to teach your team and you want that culture to be that of service, and I'll figure out a way to get it done, you have to do that from the top. Like you have to be willing to demonstrate that. Otherwise, your people aren't going to work at that pace.
Dude, you're the same way, right? Like you're in the trenches selling in the morning, like trying to bring in new business. So you know what they feel, you know what it's like. You've had success. And so, we're small, we're young, we want to get to a certain place, but we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of improvement. If I'm not in here trying to like help them out and get in the trenches, like they're just not going to respect me.
No, they won't. And you just reminded me of the second thing that I wanted to ask you about, which is founder-led and executive-led sales. So I mentioned earlier, man, a lot of the time when you and I talk, you're in your car forward-facing on the video and we're chatting about different things and you're getting ready to go knock on a door or go have a conversation with one of your customers. So why is that so important to you as you continue to build Wheelhouse? Because you've built a business, but you're still hustling away.
Yeah. I've got a lot of thoughts on this. I think there's some founders out there that would say, all right, I'm going to create a sales team. I'm going to create this division, create that division, and just kind of step aside and manage and oversee everything, right? One, I love sales. That's the favorite part of this job. I like going out, meeting new people. I like going out and visiting customers. I like getting a new logo. Like I like doing it. I'm good at it. We were the top agency at our last freight brokerage. So if I'm not out there trying to drive sales for this new company, right? Like
who's going to do it?
Who's going to do it? And why wouldn't I do it? Right? Why wouldn't I do it? I'm going to have more success early on because I have the relationships. I can ask for the referrals. I can leverage an existing customer. Like I could talk the talk. So I'm going to, if I call 10 people and one of our other sales guys calls 10 people, like I'm just going to have a better win percentage, right? And so do I want to be knocking on doors 20 years from now? No, but we're, almost 2 years in. We're still very young. We need to all be out there, all hands on deck selling. Dima and Arthur just brought in 2 new logos today.
Let's go.
Yeah. Our operators, right?
It's
an all hands on deck thing. Guys in North Carolina, you need to be out there selling. Dan, your team, you guys need to be out there selling. We're going to hire 3 more people out of the Sacramento office. Dan's a badass. I need to be out there selling. So sales cures all. If you're not focused on sales, when we started, like we've had some challenges and some real difficulties, like getting from here to there, and we still have a lot of work, but sales kind of stalled. We were dependent on a lot of the house accounts that we brought over, these legacy accounts, and we weren't finding the new accounts like we need to. And so we need to find more accounts. Everybody's got to be doing this. The 2 new logos we got today it was from a referral, and I ran the credit and it was like, oh, perfect. These guys, they've got a huge freight spend, great credit, right in our specialty. It's like, so yeah, I know a lot of the, some of the customers you work with already that are in the top 100 brokerages, they have similar founders that are out there pounding pavement, working with their salespeople. Maybe they're working with their agents, the last brokerage I worked with, the 2 owners would go on sales calls with me all the time, So you need to be out there hustling just like they are.
It just gets me fired up every time we talk because you have so much passion for the revenue generation side of the business.
Yeah.
You care about ops, right? You want to make sure freight is service, but you know that if you're in front of good customers, the rest of the stuff is going to work out. And, it's funny, man, I had a mentor early on say, revenue, as you mentioned, revenue cures all ills. And over time, the only caveat I have to that is good revenue, which is what you mentioned, right? Good credit profile. Do they fit? Man, make sure they pay their bills. Do they fit for what we do? And if you're able to add that new business, man, we're going to be A-okay. This whole thing's going to keep moving.
Totally. There's a lot of shippers out there, and they just, we're pretty clear as to what's a good customer for us. Credit and paying their bills is up there near the top, right? Like, do I like working with them? Do I like working with them? And that's a big piece. That's an intangible. It's not shipments booked. It's not good credit. Do they pay their bills? It's an intangible and one only the person working the account can determine. But, we give our operations team the latitude to fire our customers. Like, hey, man, especially if they're not big and they're a pain in the rear, like, let them go, man. Nothing's more gratifying than that. Nothing.
What's interesting is you cannot have that as an option if you're not a sales first organization, because you're going to be beholden to anyone that will do business with you, not the customers you want to do business with. And our team, we talk about this all the time. We are very strict about the companies that we onboard and do work with, because we want to enjoy the people that we work with. We want them to be strong organizations that are going to take, first of all, care of the candidates that we send, or they're going to actually implement the processes we put in place for consulting, or they're going to use, the stuff that they're paying for on the training side. And if you can actually push sales in a manner where you've got a strong funnel and you don't have to, air quote, to work with everybody, it's just a way more enjoyable day to day. We spent a long time hustling. Well, I want to do it with people that are more enjoyable than people you got to like really, really work your tail off to do the work with.
And if the more customers you get, the less you need necessarily these other customers that come on board, and it's just easier. They gravitate towards you, less you need. I don't know if it's necessarily on the topic, but it is in terms of like bringing on new customers. Like early on, I had about 25% of my book of business in one customer, and I would have sleepless nights. And, I've been doing some reading, and a lot of these bigger brokerages, CH and RXO and the publicly traded companies, they're also heavily concentrated. Like a lot of them have 10% of their business is tied up into a handful of accounts. I really don't want to be dependent on one account ever, right? So we had one customer we'll call them Coca-Cola. It wasn't Coca-Cola, but let's just say.
Yeah.
And the mantra for the next year when I was an agent was, let's find the next Coca-Cola. Find me the next Coca-Cola. We found the next Coca-Cola, right? And then it was like, okay, they were Pepsi. Find me the next Pepsi, right? We need to keep finding these. I never want to be dependent on one account. I never want to be dependent on one employee. I never want to be dependent on that. That's it. Employees or one account,
Yeah, you want to diversify that risk. And I talk about that all the time with our business and different consulting clients, because you are one bad day away from the entire business changing. And man, for as hard as it is to build from zero, it's just an uncomfortable place to be at if that's an option. You never want that to be the case.
Yeah. And, I was talking about this with somebody else earlier that's not in the business, but he knows the business well in terms of and I'm impressed with a lot of the brokerages out there. I'll say Echo for one, that have these contracts set up, or at least their shippers think that, oh, I've got a contract with Echo. Their accounts are sticky, right? In the freight business, we're selling a commodity. It's really hard to keep these accounts sticky. Our biggest accounts, they could go with somebody else today, right? There's nothing keeping them from leaving. It wouldn't be a big disruption to their business if they left us, and so they can really leave you easily, which is why you got to always be bringing in new ones, and making them feel good and adding value and whatnot. There's some brokerages out there. I'm curious to get your take on this, that it's amazing. They set up these contracts and they're not even really transportation management contracts. They're just hey, you agree to work with us for a year. We're going to give you this pricing, and they sign those deals, and it's impressive.
There's this in between. You've got pure transactional spot business, just trading a truck for a load, right? Yeah. You have actual outsourced 4PL managed transportation, and then in between that, you have the contractual business from mid-market or large enterprise style customers where you agree to move X number of shipments across Y lane for whatever fixed rate. And when you think about being able to develop a strong carrier network, at least on truckload, whether it be open deck, refrigerated, dry van, or any standard mode, the more density you have and the more predictability you have in any of that business, the easier it is for me to go and, to your example, find the next Pepsi to say, okay, I'm running Chicago to Atlanta and I've run it 4 times a day for the last year. I know all the carrier partners that run that. I know the rates. I know the service levels. So who else does that? And in my opinion, if you're building a brokerage and you're trying to get closer towards a strong carrier network, you have to have some lane density, which sometimes means you're going to take a risk on contractual volume that you may not be prepared to move today. You'll find the carrier partners if you have the lanes long enough, but that's the only way to build with mid-market or enterprise style shippers, because you're not going to be able to compete with the big dogs if you don't have the carrier network otherwise.
Your carrier network. So I mean, you talk about carriers. I'm a huge fan of just your carrier network. And I'm a big believer that it goes sales, number 1A, and then your carrier network 1B. And I know a lot of brokerages don't necessarily agree with that. They post everything under the sun. They'll quote without a carrier. I get all that. But we wouldn't have a business if it weren't for our trucking, our partners. We wouldn't, right? They've won us business. We keep going to them. They reduce our costs when we need to. They cover loads at prices they don't necessarily want to, just to take care of us.
Totally.
Your carrier network is so important in this business. That's what you're selling, right? You're selling your carrier partners. And so we just got this one account that I'm super excited about. We've been doing a lot of them. They're, month to date, they're our second biggest customer. And we just started working with them about a month and a half ago,
Man,
which
that's
is
sick.
A lot of times a red flag.
Yeah.
In this case, it's not. Great credit. They were referral. They know us well. But our carriers have been coming through their lanes they like. It's just a perfect geography, perfect mode. And if it weren't for our carriers, we probably wouldn't have gotten the business, right? But carriers are so important in this business.
It's interesting. I started my career on the carrier side of the game. I love carrier sales. I love what it can do to a business. I'm very, very passionate, and I think it's intense. You're on the floor hustling when you're on the carrier side of the business. Not that you don't do it on the customer side, but it's just a very different hustle and grind. I've spent the majority of my career now commercial on the shipper side, leading teams and building strategies there. But there's just something so unique about that side of the business. And today, in the year 2026, we've onboarded more consulting clients to do carrier sales, procurement, and high-level strategy than we have in the whole, we've been in business for 3 years. So more in the last 6 months than we have in the last 2.5 years, because people are now understanding, if I don't have a strong carrier network and I don't have relationships with partners, I can add as many Coca-Colas as I want, but if I can't cover the freight, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It's not like it's rocket science, but like, to your point, your best carrier partners are going to help you retain customers. They're going to help you expand customers. And that's about the only proprietary thing most shops are going to have. Who do you use and who do you know has the service levels necessary to help execute for your shippers? If you don't know that, it's a wrap.
And so we really do, we're selling our carriers, right? So when we go out and people ask us about strong lanes, strong modes, like we're essentially selling for our existing carriers, right? Like, oh, we do partials out of Northern California to all throughout the country. Like, we're selling our carriers, right? These carriers that I'm thinking of that do partials only. God, where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought. Essentially, they help us win business. We are going out and selling on their behalf. And when you talk to somebody that says, hey, Travis, we do 150 truckload, recent conversation with I don't even know how I just discovered these guys. It's embarrassing, but they're right out of my backyard and they're doing like 150.
It's okay. Okay.
150 truckloads a week into the Bay Area from all throughout the country, right? And I'm talking to him very confidently because I'm just thinking of carriers I know I will crush this for me, right? And so it really, when you have that carrier network and you're confident in their abilities and the lanes and the modes, it just shines through to the prospect. Like they can feel that energy. When somebody says, hey, I do a lot of 12 skids, 10 skids, 15 skids out of Sacramento going to the Midwest, to the Northeast, or we do a lot of temp controlled LTL from Northern California to the Northeast. I'm like, baby, I can help you
all day. All day.
So it's my carriers that I'm confident. It's my carriers that I know can do a good job. And so our next challenge is finding those gaps, right? Like there are a billion different lane shipment scenarios throughout this country. And so being able to cover those lanes where it's not, you can't just sell Northern California and scale, right? We can't just sell these temp controlled LTL out of certain geographies and scale. Like when we get a shipper out of Atlanta, get a shipper out of Tennessee, get a shipper out of Maryland, like I want to be able to confidently sell to them. So that's our biggest challenge right now.
So before we get ready to wrap, I want to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. I think you have, and your team, you guys have a great LinkedIn presence. Your brand is all over the place on LinkedIn in a positive way. As you guys have done that, what have you seen be helpful, and why has that been an approach for you that you want to focus on?
Yeah. So before Dan came aboard, I was not a LinkedIn guy. I was a lurker. I don't even know why I had a profile, honestly. Like, it's like, okay, I did nothing with it, right? And a couple times I would try to sell through LinkedIn, message people. It's like I was wasting my time. Dan was a big LinkedIn guy when he came. And so we started posting, and early on, I just knew I wanted to be authentic and leverage my experience and the nuances of freight. Just talk more about this crazy stuff we deal with every week as a freight agent or a freight broker, right? Like, so authenticity and talking the nuances of freight. And so that's what I did, like consistency. Dan's the same way, talking more sales stuff, but just consistently. No shippers have approached us and been like, hey, we see what you're doing on LinkedIn. Like, can we set up a meeting? Hopefully. And I know some, big LinkedIn users have said they've gotten business that way. The biggest benefit for us, we just signed an agent that we're incredibly excited about. This guy is a top performer. He's going to be a stud, right? Like I posted on LinkedIn, I was looking for agents and he reached out to me. I'm sure he reached out to 10 other people as well.
Yeah.
And rightfully so, he needs to do his homework. But after 3-4 months of talking to him, like we had a seat at the table and now he's with us. And so the biggest benefit is it's name recognition. It's who's Wheelhouse. Like people are starting to, I know who they are, at least in LinkedIn circles. It's credibility. It's knowing, hey, these guys know their stuff. He looks like he's a freight agent. You can tell just by what he's posting. So, and it's the relationships I don't know if you call them relationships, the connections we've developed through LinkedIn that have helped on a recruiting standpoint. We're bringing in, we're in like the fourth conversation with a prospect that we met through LinkedIn. He sees our stuff. Hey, they look legit. And all we want is a seat at the table. Yeah. When we're talking to these prospective agents, prospective salespeople, because we feel like we have a lot to offer. Yeah. They don't know you and you don't have a LinkedIn presence. They're never going to call you, right? But really the biggest benefit for us is recruiting.
I agree. I mean, obviously, 1/3 of our business is recruiting outside of the different things we do, recruiting, consulting, and training. And having a presence on LinkedIn allows us to have warm conversations with most people, whether they be a potential candidate or if it is a potential client. And, to your point, you never really know what people are going to see. They may be just an observer. They just look at content. They don't comment a ton. But when you get on that call, they're like, oh, okay, I'm familiar with you. And today, most people are doing their research before they see you. So, I mean, you and I have talked about this a ton. Sales is challenging enough as it is. Let me make it a little bit easier so that you've got some reference points about who we are and what we do before we have that conversation. Because, man, am I battling a lot of competition to hire you, to move your freight, to load your trucks, whatever it might be. I want to build as much credibility as I can before I get on the phone with Travis. So he goes, okay, this guy, he's worth the conversation.
100%. 100%. I mean, I think Michael reached out to you initially because he saw you on LinkedIn, but I had seen you through connections and whatnot. So I was well aware of who you were. So absolutely just gives the person familiarity and gives you a little bit of credibility if you're talking freight and stuff. Now, there's some questionable posts on LinkedIn. It's like, I don't want to work with that guy.
No, yeah, correct. There's the other side. You got to be cognizant of that too.
I'll tell you, man, I'm not a LinkedIn professional. I'm not a pro, but like the AI stuff, I don't love it. I don't love it. I can't do it. Like everything I've posted is like, I'm sitting there on my couch, like, whatever, posting it. And again, try to be authentic and it's real. And I come up with whatever I'm posting. Like you get these long posts, like, you've lost me, man. You lost me after
like, dude, like I don't want to read this novel, brother. Like, it's too much. Here's what I'll tell you, Travis. My hot take is the more human, the more curated things will win moving forward. That will be in engagements with carrier partners, with shippers, stuff that has nothing to do with freight, because it's so easy to create content today. The bar is very low. You can use something to do some voice generation. You can use something to create a video. Something can write your post for you. So you're being inundated with content. Yeah. People want the real, to your point, the authentic. They want the actual curated human stuff. If you were to ask me where I'm going to focus personally, being more authentic, being closer to our customers and closer to the people that we want to work with. So it's very, very real, because you can't fake that. You can't AI that. It has to be authentic for it to be something that people connect with. And as we see more and more AI slop and, stuff that people are like just shooting from the hip on, it'll be easy to tell who knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's not just in LinkedIn, but just in life, right? Like I love people that just can keep it real. Doesn't mean you're an asshole. It just means like you keep it real. You can make fun of yourself. Like, you're just authentic, right? And real. And so from a sales perspective, that really, it works. I shouldn't say it works. Like it plays well when you're talking to a prospect and you're just being real and you're able to maybe, hey, we're not a good fit for you. Let me introduce you to somebody who might be though, or you genuinely have showing interest in their business and who they are and whatnot. So just authenticity has really helped me out from a sales standpoint. I think it's going to help you recruit. I think it's going to help you find customers. And this is a small industry, super small.
So small.
Like, everybody knows everybody. And it did not end the way I would like my last brokerage. And there's some mistakes I made, and I would do things a little bit differently had I bet they would say the same thing. But man, everybody knows everybody talks. And so doing the right thing and being authentic, but also just being a good person is going to take you a long way.
Travis, that's an incredible footnote to end on, man, because I couldn't agree more. You want to do business the right way. You want to take care of people because it is a very small world, and you never know who knows who or who might be in the room that you want to do business with in a couple of years, and how you treat them and, the experiences that they have with you, they mean quite literally everything. So as we get ready to wrap here, man, where's the best place for people to reach out to you or your team if they want to learn more about you and what you guys are doing?
I think LinkedIn, does anybody go onto websites anymore?
Every once in a while, man, I check the traffic, sometimes it's heavy. So we'll see.
Hit me up on LinkedIn, hit Dan Gallagher up on LinkedIn, through our website, Wheelhouse Logistics. I'm Travis at wheelhouselogistics.com, but LinkedIn's for sure the best way, Travis Dodge. And I'm pretty active on there. So if you message me, I'm going to see it, but when I first started doing this, I wasn't looking to network. I didn't. It was like head down, find the next shipper, take good care of my customer. I didn't see the value in it, but I've seen the light, and I think it's important to grow the network. So we're trying to be intentional about growing our network of people in this business. And even if they have zero interest in working together or coming over here, that's okay. You never know what the future holds. So I'm down for a good conversation about booking freight too.
Heck yeah, man. Well, Travis, it's always a pleasure. Congrats on what you and your team are building. I look forward to being able to continue working with y'all and digging in, man. But I look forward to
you've done for us. Well, thanks for having me. You guys are the best. And so happy to refer you to anybody. You guys, we talk about this all the time, how prepared you guys are, how prepared you are. There's no time wasting time. There's no small talk. Let's get down to business, man. And so we love that.
Man, I appreciate that a ton. It means the world. And I look forward to jamming on sales more on another one of these, man. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good one, Will.
Awesome. See you.